Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Please take your seats. We'll be commencing momentarily. Once again, please take your seats. We will be commencing momentarily. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Now get ready to learn from the experts as they share how they became esports legends. Here to get things started is ESL caster Paul Inverum Totkill.
Thanks, everyone. We're here talking a little bit more about content creation in esports. I'm Paul Totkill. I'm a caster over at ESL, but I can't do this alone. We have a lot of amazing talent who's going to be joining me on this stage. From Cloud9, we have PvP coming on in, professional Apex and Overwatch player. We also have Dimes from Mavs Gaming at the NBA 2K League. And of course, we have Tim Gessling coming on in from Rooster Teeth, who are joining me here as well. So I'm going to start things off, just let you guys introduce yourselves. We kind of give you a little bit of an intro, but who are you in esports?
I'm Jameson, otherwise known as PvPX Online. For the past 3 years, I've been doing content creation, mostly for Overwatch. And over the past few months, I've slowly transitioned to competing professionally for Cloud9 for Apex Legends. And yeah, that's where I'm at.
Hi, I am Dimes. I'm a professional player for the Dallas Mavericks and Mavs Gaming and the NBA 2K League. So I play sports games, just a lot of basketball. I've been playing for 10 years. Luckily, recently, they opened up the league to where now I can make a career and have, a life and be able to, succeed in life with it. And I went #1 pick overall in the entire world to the Dallas Mavericks and Mavs Gaming. So nice to meet you all. Thank you.
My name's Tim Gessling. I oversee brand partnerships at Rooster Teeth, which is a media company. It's part of Warner Media, rooted in Austin, Texas. And I oversee how they work with lots of game publishers and other brands that are exploring the gaming space from a content creation standpoint.
So I have to start things off, because our first tip here is know your audience. And Dimes, I feel like you're someone who really has that connection with your audience. So tell a little bit, how important is knowing your audience in the world of content creation?
Yeah, it's very important. Just the biggest thing I would say, I'm lucky because I play a game that everyone knows. So I have the luxury of playing just basketball. Everybody knows basketball throughout the whole world. And, my supporters, my fans, the age varies. I have kids, so they might look at me and, like that, oh, my flashiness on the court from dribbling and, getting big-time buckets. And then I have, the teenagers who look at me as an idol, who want to be me, who understands that, like, I'm paving the way for them to, tell their parents, because growing up, like, me and my dad, we had a lot of, like, disagreements with what I was doing. So he was like, I'm 18, I'm living in my parents' house. I don't have a job or anything. I'm sleeping and playing the game. That's what I'm doing. So he's like, Trey, you need to get a job. You got to do something. You got to go to school. And I'm like, Dad, I'm working towards something. Like, I have a vision. Just give me some time, and bear with me. So it wasn't until I won a big tournament and for $250,000. And then he understood, like, oh, yeah, you are working towards something. So, I'm kind of paving the way to, like, show not only just the teenagers and the kids, but also their parents that, we're playing video games, but we're not just playing video games. You know what I mean? So it's just about, doing what you love and, sticking with that and, seeing your vision through.
And obviously, as you mentioned, it's easy with something like basketball because everybody knows it is more relevant. For something, you came up playing Overwatch, how is that a little bit different in connecting with that audience?
Well, Overwatch is a pretty diverse game when it comes to its core. Like everyone knows basketball. Basketball is a sport as well as an esport. Overwatch is, when you get into it, there's different characters in game. There's about 30 now. So in Overwatch, I'm known for one, so I target a specific audience for that character. But over time, I'd like to branch out and get to know other audiences, so of other content creators and stuff, and change my content quite a bit to try and get new viewers in. And as well as Apex is a completely different game and completely different audience. When you stream and put content out for that game, you present it differently. So being able to adapt and reach new people is pretty important.
And adaptability is so important because things are there's new games coming out, there's new content for those new games. Staying up to date, staying relevant is really important, which ties into our next tip here, which is of course staying relevant. You guys in particular, I think we'll start with you again, Dimes. How important is that? If somebody who's obviously played all the different 2K games, you've gone through all these iterations, how important is it to stay up to date with that?
Excuse me. It's very important. I think with 2K and just the way it changes every year, I think the biggest thing is just to consistently play the game. You want to learn the ins and outs of it early, because you get that head start, that momentum going into the new year. I think that's the biggest thing. So just staying with your content, staying with your audience and, releasing that content and just being consistent with it and being consistent with playing the game keeps your name up there and keeps it relevant, while doing so.
And Tim, to follow up on that, you're obviously working with a bunch of different, brands, a bunch of different creators as well. How important is it from not just like one specific game, but keeping relevant across the entire genre?
Yeah, I think it's important that you think about where your different audience pockets are. I think a lot of gamers now, they have one game that they like, but that doesn't mean that just because someone watches 2K doesn't mean they don't like watching Apex or they don't like watching Overwatch. So you want to spread it out, but also make sure that you're giving the people what they want. So I think it's like at Rooster Teeth, they have a brand called Achievement Hunter. They still drop Minecraft videos every Friday because they know that that is what the audience wants to see on a Friday. But every other day of the week, they could be playing Apex, they could be playing Overwatch, or they could be playing Overcooked. And really just giving the audience what they expect while also serving them something new.
And I want to finish off with you here, because obviously you've kind of made a transition from one game to the other. What kind of was the thought process when you're like, what, I want to really dive into Apex? Was it just that you liked the game, or did you also see the potential as sort of an entertainment platform?
Well, the way I see audiences sometimes is there's like three different forms. There's like the professional scene, there's the competitive scene, there's the casual scene. For Overwatch, for me personally, I see it as like a competitive content creation type thing. I really like streaming, putting out content, and doing stuff for that. But for Apex, I want to dive into the professional scene, actually competing in tournaments and getting to know the esports as a whole. So transitioning into like two different audiences like that was a pretty big a pretty big change for me. But a lot of the stuff for Apex and transitioning into the professional scene was offline mentality and practicing and trying to view other people's perspective, how they train and stuff. Whereas mostly for Overwatch and competitive, I focus more on myself and just see what I can do in self-improvement.
Well, speaking of that, if we talk about our next point, which is being yourself, how you say you look at how other people play the game and you look at how they go about it. How do you keep the core of what you do? Like, how do you build the center point of your brand, which is in this case, as a streamer, is obviously yourself. How do you keep that at the forefront?
Yeah, a lot of people that tune into me every day, like when I stream and stuff, they tell me, they like to see me, they like my personality. I don't really think of it like that. I think like people just like to watch my gameplay, but my personality does bring a big part into it. And you do need to present yourself professionally in terms of like for sponsors and stuff like that, but as well as just keeping it normal for the average person that tunes into your stream. Like they just want to have a good time and get some good laughs. You're not an actor. You're just a regular person, just presenting some quality content for the average person. So.
Yeah. Well, and follow up on that, Dimes, because the whole idea is that you're not an actor, you're just being yourself. You're obviously someone who is known to make big plays, is known to go off. How important is that for you?
Yeah, so, excuse me, just going into my thing and with my stream and everything.
There you go.
Sorry. So yeah, going into it with just me streaming and how important it is to be yourself and, because at the end of the day, we're doing what we want to do and something we love. So with my stream, man, I'm funny. Like a big part of my stream is just me. They come to see us play. We're good and we're the best players in the world. But the thing that keeps people watching is that they grasp onto you and who you are. They love us and support us as people first, and not players or anything like that. They like us as who we are. So a big thing of mine is just, having fun with my stream, having fun with my viewers. Whether it's, goofing around and, I be dancing on stream or doing whatever, or just having karaoke night, and we are all singing, and while I'm singing the songs, they're typing it in the chat, the next words, the next line. So just having fun with them. And, I had a few people tell me I helped them with something they were going through in their life that was, serious or a sad moment, or, whether it's a breakup or a heartbreak or anything like that. So just to know that I touched them that way, to where I can bring some positivity to their day and to their life is, it's amazing, man. It's so much bigger than just gaming and games. It's just helping them out throughout their day and through their life.
And positivity being part of that brand is so important because it's the outward face. It's what people see. And when we comes to dealing with developers, and you mentioned earlier with sponsors as well, obviously, Tim, that's something that you deal with a lot. How important is it to make sure that the content you're creating is going to be affecting people in a positive manner, especially dealing with these third parties?
I think it's crucial. I think that when people think about their relationships with developers, especially as gaming continues to grow, it's not just the game makers, it's all the other brands that want to be in the space. I like to think about, for creators and for teams, what I call kind of like a brand family, which is basically your audience should know oh, this is my energy drink brand, or this is my computer brand, or my hardware brand, and you want to really build that affinity. If you're doing it well, when you switch, your audience should notice. They should be switch to Red Bull, that's new, I wonder why that happened. And that really establishes a strong connection. And from a publisher side, or from a publisher, brand side, then you kind of take the people who are fans of that influencer and you turn them into advocates for that brand, which I think is really powerful for both sides.
And talking about fans, and we touched on this a little bit earlier, Dime's getting ahead of us with these tips, creating these positive spaces for fans. Obviously, community, if we're looking at something like Twitch chat, Twitch chat can be its own beast sometimes, but I've also seen some of the most genuinely positive, loving interactions, not just between you and the fans, but amongst the fans themselves. I guess I'll start with you, PvP. How important is it to sort of help facilitate your fans becoming friends with each other as well as loving your content?
I guess you can compare it to just meeting with a group in real life in person, and people don't want negativity. They meet together because they want to have a positive time. They want to laugh, they want to enjoy what they're doing, and trying to make sure that you're keeping that positive. You have moderation for the Twitch chat, obviously, but keeping everything happy. Doing different events, there's charity events for almost every single game that really bring up a lot of good vibes and different communities together. And just keeping things diverse and doing different challenges and stuff for people to enjoy helps bring overall morale.
For sure. I mean, Dom, as you mentioned, you have karaoke nights. I want to hear more about that kind of stuff because I think that's the thing that separates you from just somebody who plays video games to a personality and something that people can attach themselves to.
I think it goes back to what Jameson was saying with just gaming and, in general is so diverse. So and I'm very diverse when it comes to music. So whether I'm listening to pop or R&B or hip hop or whatever, that's the way I channel and connect with my fans and my supporters. So it's an easy transition for me to do it. And like you were saying, also just with meeting up with them, whether it's because again I play basketball, meeting up with them and just meeting up at the court, or I'm in New York and they come down and just want to hang out or do anything. I'm always down to do whatever with people who support me. I never say no to an interview, to a pitch or anything. So I'm always just fairly open, because if you're perfect example, right? We just played a tournament in Florida, the ticket tournament, and we lost, and it was a super tough loss, right? We lost by literally the game-winning shot. We missed. So obviously, it was a lot of built-up emotion, and we're coming off a tough loss. That's $180,000 that we just lost out on. But, what people don't, may not understand or overlook is that, there's people that came 3 hours or drove 8 hours, just to come see me play. So whether it's media people or fans or supporters or people who just want to meet me and see me play in person. So after that loss, like, I have to suck that up, and because I can't just like leave. I can't leave them. I want to connect with them. These are people I've been knowing for 2 to 3 years who I never met in person. So it's a lot of stuff that goes into it, more so than just playing the game. And I have real relationships and friendships with these people because at the end of the day, they're supporters or fans, but they're my friends first.
I think that's huge. The idea that you can, kind of cross that threshold and fans becoming friends. And obviously, my last sort of point on this, Tim, obviously we were talking about this a little bit earlier, RTX is coming around the corner, where all the fans come together. Tell us a little bit about planning that experience or what that's like.
Yeah, so RTX is Rooster Teeth's community convention. It's coming up real soon, I think it's 10 days, July 5th through 7th in Austin. And that is really a gathering place for fans. And one thing that I think is really cool about it is a lot of fans will travel to that event by themselves because they know that Rooster Teeth has created a community that even if you fly in by yourself, there's going to be people waiting for you there. This community lives on the Rooster Teeth website, but also on all social media platforms, Discord, places like that. And that's one thing that I think is really amazing about gaming is that there's so much action in the chat and there's so much storylines and fan connection that's happening not just when there's matches. And it really kind of sets it apart. Dimes, I wanted to ask you, man, what's your go-to karaoke song for your stream?
Go-to karaoke song? I don't know, man. I literally listen to everything. So I will. This is a true story. I will jump from Justin Bieber to Beyonce to some Hinder to Lenny Kravitz, anything. I'm literally listening to anything when it comes to it, man. I don't have a specific song. It's just whatever the mood is. We have a hype mood, and then we have the chill, love songs, and let's just vibe out mood.
Sounds like a party.
Oh, it is. It gets crazy in the Twitch chat.
One thing we're excited about, too, at RTX this year is we're doing a big partnership with ATT, kind of across all of AT&T's empire, I would say, where we have Mortal Kombat, which is a game published by Warner Bros. Interactive. We have content that's going to be on Turner's E-League. And then we have some influencers coming as well that amplify the whole event with Rooster Teeth. So it's really cool. Fans are going to have a chance to be able to compete on the main stage for some good prize money. And I think that's kind of one of the things that AT&T is capable to do now, which is it's been really fun to work on, too. I remember growing up playing Mortal Kombat, and now I'm actually working on it, and it's a real blast.
Yeah, for sure. And Rooster Teeth Expo, this has been going on for how many years now?
It's been going on for at least 9 years. The first one was started, it was a field in Texas in the summer. So that should tell you the power of fandom. Getting in a field in Texas in the summer can be real hot. Oh, yeah. Now it's all inside multiple buildings and everything.
You've obviously expanded now because one of the things that's helped build upon this, which is our next tip, which is consistency. And I think for Twitch streamers in particular, it's gotten almost to the point where you're afraid to take time off because the audience is so invested in you as a brand. But obviously consistency is how you help build that audience. We look at some of the people who are, at the top of the space right now. The way they got there is streaming 365 straight days or that kind of making sure they're creating content every single day. And I know you're obviously somebody who's creating a lot of content PvP. How important is consistency, especially when you're starting off? At the beginning in particular, having that schedule and building your brand?
Yeah, I think there's different forms of consistency that you can do. I actually, believe it or not, I don't have a schedule, which is kind of wild. But the reason I don't have a schedule is because I stream every single day. I don't have a set time schedule, but I stream every single day, 365 days a year, unless I'm away, like right now. And I just do it because I don't think that it's going to get me the most money or bring in the most viewers. It's just because I actually just enjoy doing what I do. It's just fun. I stream for 8 hours and I look at the clock and I'm just like, whoa, well, how did I do that? But yeah, that's for streaming in general. For another word of consistency, I use other platforms. Obviously YouTube and Twitter. There's a lot of different ways that you can do it. So I'm away right now, I can't stream. So I have YouTube content that I have ready to publish as I'm gone to keep my audience engaged and connected to me while I'm away and give them some good content to enjoy while I'm not home.
Yeah, and Dimes, follow up on that as well, because obviously, between playing competitively in the league itself and streaming, you're also putting out a lot of content.
Yeah, so, excuse me, with me, it's a little bit tougher because I am playing in the league, and that's so with the league, it's 6 months season and 6 months off season. So it's a little tougher to stream during season because I'm traveling every day, or every week. Literally, we travel every week, and I'm practicing the days that I'm there, that I am home in Dallas, and then I am doing appearances. I am doing like all different type of things. So it's a little bit harder. So with me, it's being like Jameson said, with being consistent on Twitter and YouTube and doing different things. Like I vlogged the trip to Orlando or to Florida that we did. So just like you said, giving your supporters, something to look at and be active on Twitter and just, like I said, at the end of the day, it's just all about like conversating with them and being engaged with them. It doesn't really necessarily have to be streaming, just interacting with them in some type of way, shape, or form. So, and then the other part of being consistent is just like just grinding the game. Like they see you grinding, they see you putting work in. Like people respect that, and they will, jump onto that wave if you're creating it.
I mean, that ties into our fourth tip, which is the idea that your community is lifeblood. And I don't just mean in terms of stats and metrics, because I know for a lot of people, it's often so easy to look at these audience members in a chat and be like, oh, I had X many concurrent viewers today, and I peaked at this many chatters. But those are people, and the idea that we can connect with those people on a more personal level, I think is so important, and I think that's something that Rooster Teeth has done an incredible job of doing. So Tim, tell us about that, because you guys have some of the most ravenous fans that I have ever seen in gaming.
Yeah, I mean, Rooster Teeth is wild. It started in 2003, which is kind of like right before YouTube, with a series called Red versus Blue. And one of the things that they did when the show was first starting was they started a community website. And that's been like it really has been, you say lifeblood, like a major lifeblood of the company, where some of the biggest people who work at the company, people like Barbara Dunkelman or Gavin Free, who's part of Achievement Hunter, these are people who met in the community forums, and Rooster Teeth found them and hired them, and these instances moved them to Austin. And now we always connect with our community, both through events like RTX. We have a charity live stream with Extra Life every year. This year we raised over $1 million for a local children's hospital. And I think that what you were saying earlier about when you connect with your community, it's not just streaming, and it's not just gaming. It's all these other touch points on social media. And it's about really driving the connection with you as a streamer or as a company, and not just the content. The bonds of community are formed through the chat, it's formed through social, it's formed through meetups, not just your progress through each game.
And I think that touches on our third point, which I think we're going to chat about for a bit here, because it's a pretty big one. It's the idea of recognizing trends. Now, trends in gaming, obviously, there's new games come out. That's one thing. New titles like Battle Royales dropped, and that's used auto chess and all that kind of stuff. All these different game genres and new things are coming out and developing. How important is it to sort of, gauge, is this something that I need to be exploring, even if it's just like peripheral through variety content? Is this something I want to dive into a little bit more? How much does this is something I think I actually really enjoy? How much is I should explore this because likely this is going to be big? Obviously, and as somebody who works in this a lot, it's the idea of finding the balance between the business side of things, but also what you really enjoy doing. And in an ideal world, and now for you guys, you wouldn't do it if you weren't loving it. So how important is it to sort of find the trends that really speak to you? PvP, I'll start with you.
I think a lot of people, when they think about that question, they'll think of what's the next big ship that I need to jump onto to try and capture the biggest audience. And you can kind of look at it the opposite perspective as, if all these people and content creators are jumping on this game, what can you capture outside of that? Like, for example, I've been playing almost 2 games exclusively for 3 years, which is kind of crazy to think about. But as other content creators leave, there's still fans there that want that content. They still want to enjoy stuff. So you could stay around, maybe capture other markets that were moved on to other games, and expand your audience quite a bit. So I think that's something I'd like to definitely point on about that.
Oh, for sure. Because I mean, if you had 50 people streaming a game and then 40 of them go to this, but there's still the fans who are there who's like, I still want to watch X game. I still want to have that. You find yourself just tapping into those other audiences, and recognizing trends. Obviously, continues when it comes to, especially in esports, is one of the things we talk about here a lot. Mm-hmm. You obviously wanted to get involved in the 2K League. Talk about that, being there at the start. Being that #1 overall draft pick. Clearly, you put a lot of thought going into this, not just from a training standpoint, but how you wanted to execute it.
Yeah, going into it, it's crazy because going into the draft, I was like, it's a lot of chatter, just like this year with Zion Williamson. And, like, they were saying, oh, he's the number one pick, but it actually happening, like, me actually walking across the stage and, getting a phone call from Mark Cuban, like, who called my phone when I was sitting in the stage, just like this, waiting for them to call my name and walk across it. It's a different type of feeling, like, having it actually happen. So, yeah, I was, like, pretty confident I was going to go number one, but, for it to actually happen was just a different type of feeling. So I just knew going into it that having a whole, billion-dollar organization have faith in me and, trusting me to lead the organization, that I was going to do exactly that and bring some wins and hopefully championships to Dallas. So it's just a different type of feeling, man. And I don't know, man. It's just like, just even thinking about it now, just like giving me goosebumps. So it's just like hard to even explain. But still to this day, like I thank Dallas and the NBA for having, the NBA 2K League and something for me to showcase my talents on because, like I said, I've been playing for 10 years and 8 of those years, it was nothing to showcase our talents on. So the last 2 years has been amazing and changed my life drastically.
What was the emotional process like when you heard that the league was announced? I have to ask. Like, like, where were you when you heard the news and you're like, wait, I want to do this?
All right, so I was streaming when they announced it. I was streaming, and it was like midnight or something like that. It was something outrageous. They literally came out of nowhere. And my chat was like, they spamming it. They're like, yo, Dimes, did you see Twitter? Like, did you see they're having a league? They're having a league. And I'm like, what are y'all talking about? Like, what league are you talking about? Like, I'm in all the leagues. There aren't any leagues. And they're like, yo, it's a league happening. So like check Twitter. So I go on Twitter, and I see it. Like, I see them announce it. Like, Take Two in the NBA talk about the league. So I end my stream. I'm done with streaming. Like, I'm going crazy. And I'm like, wow, like, this is actually happening because they announced it at the same time of the $250,000 tournament. So when all the top players seen the $250,000 tournament, Road to the All-Star tournament, we were like, okay, this is what we've been playing so long for, right? This is what we've been grinding all these hours for and nonstop. And then they announced the league, and I'm like, nah, like $250,000 isn't anything. This is what I've been playing for because this is something that longevity and that I actually can have a career out of and like, done the right way, you could be set, for the rest of your life because you're building relationships and you're gaining that experience in esports and the NBA and everything. So, going into it, like, I was just so locked in, man. Like, I practiced my butt off and went on to win MVP in the tournament, the $250,000, and to get drafted number one. So, like, I worked hard for it, man.
Sounds like you killed it. Yeah, that deserves a applause. Yeah.
Thank you.
So obviously Rooster Teeth has expanded. You mentioned the early days, the red versus blue, the old Halo Machinima. It's come a long way since then, and I think a lot of that recognizing trends has been really important because you mentioned Minecraft. You guys have done a ton of different stuff. What's the thought process been like, Tim, for that? Just sort of like when you think about like what do we dive into next?
Yeah, so it's funny. The founders always say we make the type of content that we would want to see, or we do the type of things that we would want to go to. So for shows like there's a big show that Rooster Teeth makes called Ruby, which is a big animated property, and that really started with the guys who were doing some of the entry-level 3D animation for Red versus Blue, like when they first started incorporating non-machinima action scenes. And they said, I had this idea. The show, one of the creators, Monty, he was like, I want to do a show that has lots of action, and I think I know how to do it. And that required them to learn how to do mocap by themselves. So one of the things I love about working at Rooster Teeth was when you walk around, there's always people doing bold new things, and I think that's important. And so Ruby was born out of a love of action scenes and also was focused on the community. One thing I think is super rad about Ruby is that all of the costumes are designed to be super easy to cosplay. Like you don't need to have like World of Warcraft level like 50 different gemstones on your armor to cosplay Ruby. You can get a lot of the builds at any craft store. And then that in turn fosters community. So they made the decision they were making one show, then they made Ruby, and then they lead into more and more shows. And now they are expanding into movies and events and bigger series. You know, this year they released a show called Genlock, which was kind of like a mech show, which was our first show with, I would say, big Hollywood talent. It was co-produced with Michael B. Jordan. We had Maisie Williams from Game of Thrones in it, and that just continues I would say the move forward for Rooster Teeth into different things.
Yeah, and moving forward is so important because, you know, I attended my first eSport event in 2008, I think. 2008 was the first one, MLG. And obviously things have changed a lot since then. Like, you know, we used to bring, not long before that, we brought our own TVs to events. We're hauling the CRTs in, you know, that was the big old block TVs back in the day. And obviously things have come a long way since then. You know, we played Halo, I competed in Gears, Call of Duty was a thing. And obviously all these games still exist and are still thriving to a greater or lesser degree, but knowing that, you know, we quote unquote dead game, we laugh, we make the meme, you know, it's always a meme. But looking forward, and we talked with this, identifying trends, but, you know, the idea that our second tip, second last tip, just because your game doesn't die doesn't mean that your content has to. And the idea of not only, you know, again, you mentioned it, still like, you know, creating content for the fans that is still there, but then also knowing that, hey, how can I transition the brand? And one of the things that I've noticed, and especially working with a lot of different content creators over a lot of different genres, is the idea that, you know, the game you're playing is great, but people are there to watch you. You, at the end of the day, are the big sort of driving factor, and it's your personality, and it can be, you know, the jokes that you tell, or the karaoke that you sing, or it can be, you know, it's the top place, you know, skills, they're in there as well. But at the end of the day, people are there to talk about you. So as somebody who's transitioned games fairly recently, PvP, I want you to take the lead on this, because obviously Overwatch is still alive and well, and OWL is still killing it, but, you know, making that transition to Apex, you talked about the idea of playing competitive versus playing pro. What was it like feeling that drive to want to play pro in a game?
Yeah, I never wanted to compete professionally in Overwatch. I don't know, it wasn't really what I wanted to. I love streaming the game so much. I knew if I wanted to compete professionally, then I'd have to sacrifice at least half of my streaming time and just competing or playing the game just for personal fun. But upon Apex releasing, I knew Overwatch was slowing down just a little bit. It still has a lot of stability, it has Overwatch League and everything, and I still love the game, but I definitely wanted to fulfill that side of me that knew I felt confident that I could compete professionally in a game. So when Apex Legends came out, that game was huge, it was massive. And I knew I was going to have esports, and that's when I started to pursue Cloud9, and I love Cloud9, and I was ecstatic when they reached back to me and they told me they wanted me to play for them. But anyways, Apex, I didn't want to leave Overwatch behind. It wasn't completely, you know, dead or anything like that. I still love to release content for that. But upon Apex release, I was literally playing 12 hours a day, like no sarcasm, literally 12 hours a day for a month. I was doing Overwatch content, and then I was offline practicing for Apex, competing in tournaments, practicing and everything. And just because it's what I love to do, and I knew I had a split audience, like, you know, not everyone from one audience would transition over, but I was still building up a new group, and I didn't want to give up one or the other, and it's still okay to have two different audiences to nurture and grow from.
I'm gonna get a little off topic real quick, because that is a crazy statistic, 12 hours a day. How do you do that for a month? What's the mentality like? Are there you know, people who are looking for, you know, tips and tricks? What do you, like, off to the side, how do you do that? That's insane.
An amazing girlfriend is the first tip. She helps me a lot. She definitely brings home food a lot when she's out. But to be honest, like, the only way you can do that with keeping a sanity is by enjoying it. Like, no cheese, like, you have to enjoy it. You can't do 12 hours a day with not enjoying it. But other than that, a lot of energy drinks and good friends to play with, and just, you know, I guess the best thing is just enjoying it. That's really all you can do. Just capturing those moments and the results of competition. Like him, for example, he competed for 8 years in NBA, and now recently he has results to show all that practice and effort that he's put into a game. And
one thing I'll say too is, like, I think it's important to differentiate what I would call gaming content, which is any stream, any YouTube VOD, anything like that, and then content for gamers, which is another way to basically say anything that's not gaming content. And I think that you see a lot of esports teams, you know, doing like house tours or merch videos or launching podcasts. Rooster Teeth does the same things, but earlier we talked about the connection with your audience, and that just continues to establish that. So just because your game doesn't die, like, your personality and your brand shouldn't have to die if you're fueling it through other means.
What's the idea of lifestyle, gaming lifestyle content? And this is, a term that's thrown around a lot, but it's something we've been seeing a lot more. We see a ton more like gaming clothing brands popping up. We see a lot of additional stuff like that. When you think of it, oftentimes you're like, oh, it's just, guy at his computer or his console with a headset, on the couch, whatever. But there's so much more to it now. Like Dimes, you guys are filming content here. We have someone backstage with the camera documenting all of this. It's the peripheral stuff that's not just the peripherals that goes along with all of this. And I think that's amazing to talk about because, as you said, Tim, it's not just games are great, but again, it's how you interact with them and how you bring those out into your life, because it's not like, you turn off the computer and, your love of games goes away. Everybody I know who works in the industry, it's what they live and breathe like 24/7. And it really seems like being able to capture that ancillary content is just as important. And that will bring us into our final point. Every single one of you have touched on it individually, independently since we've started this, but it's the idea that love what you make. The idea that when you get up every morning, and this speaks true to me, I get up every morning, most of my day now is spent producing esports shows. That's a lot of what I do now. As well as being a commentator, I work as a product manager. The idea that you actually get to build one of these things, from the ground up, and that to me was always had a lot of appeal because casting is great, but it's never something that I envisioned doing forever. I love the idea of being on both sides of the camera, and I think you guys are kind of knowing this too. Like, yeah, gaming's great, but it's what else can I do? What else can I build up along the way? And you mentioned this, Dimes, the idea that if you play this right, the connections that you make, you can set yourself up for life. So let's talk about this final one, the idea of loving what you do and knowing, like, it's interesting because it's not really like a question that you can phrase, but I guess sort of when did you know that you wanted to do this like, obviously making the transition to being a full-time streamer, content creator, that's a huge life choice. Mm-hmm. That's a huge decision to make, and loving what you make is part of that. When did you make that call? What was that process like?
Hey, do you want to go with that? Yeah. All right, so I kind of have a crazy story about how I started. I was in college. I actually went to UCF in Orlando, Florida, and I graduated college. I was working for an insurance company as an intern, and the same week that my internship ended was the same week I graduated college, and the same week I got partnered on Twitch. So it was the craziest week of my life, and I talked to my parents. I was like, I think I kind of have something here. Like, and that was 3 years ago, by the way. So like, I was like, can I try this for a few months? And they're like, yeah, sure, why not? And here I am today. I'm still doing the same thing, and it's kind of wild that I feel like probably all of us, we probably stumbled into this. We didn't go, oh man, I could be a pro gamer one day. I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna get it. It kind of just happened out of nowhere, and it's just quite unbelievable that it's been such a long time. And I'm pretty blessed and happy to be in the position that I'm in.
Me? Yeah. Sorry, guys. Mine's is it's a little different. So mine actually comes from how I stumbled into NBA and 2K. Is that from my love of basketball and just growing up playing in real life and just the passion I had for it. Starting off, I started playing in 2K9 is where when I got my first Xbox Live and everything like that. I was introduced to online gaming. So for that year was like my practice year. I used to just play like my brothers or people from around the neighborhood and beat up on them all day or whatever. And then the following year, 2K10 and 2K11, I had the #1 ranked team throughout the whole world, both years consecutively. So then I was like, hey, like I'm actually pretty good at this. So throughout that, from 2K11 or 12 to 2K16, it was just playing in any tournaments I could get in to win any type of money. As I said before, like I graduated high school, didn't go to college, and I was just immediately just grinding the game. So I got my game throughout like high school, and I was just grinding. So I had that vision, and as I said before, me and my father, we had disagreements and everything like that, but I just went on to, win the tournament and just go to the league, and it helped, like I said before, change my life drastically because I came from literally nothing. So I was like, to go from, sleeping on the floors of, people's houses to now, like, having my own house and, living in a good neighborhood and not having to, deal with the negativity throughout the neighborhood that I grew up in, and hopefully to provide for my kids and my kids' kids, it's like just a blessing. So like my story is a little different, but, we all got here today from hard work and just being focused and trying to achieve our goals and dreams.
I love it. Yeah.
Y'all are crazy. Thank y'all. Thank you.
Because, Tim, you have a different story, too, because we pulled into this lot, and you had a story for me, because you came from a completely other direction, and this is what I love. We all got here, but we all came from completely different paths. Tell us about how you got into this, and then, because you started, we only have a few minutes left, but you got into this from outside of gaming and esports.
Yeah.
And then you said you wanted to make the choice. Tell us about that. What was your first job here?
So the first job I ever had when I moved to Los Angeles was I was a PA on The Ellen Show, which shoots here on the lot. Which was a crazy experience because the first thing I ever did when I got out of college was I went and drove all the way to Orange County to pick up custom pumpkins carved in George Clooney's face. And I was like, wow, I guess I'm in the biz now. So I was in what they would call the traditional space for about 5 years, and then I switched over to work with YouTube content creators. And when I was working in that space, I've always loved gaming. I grew up PC gaming, now I'm on console. I kind of latched on to the gaming track at my company, which was called Full Screen. And then over time, that transitioned to Rooster Teeth. And I think the moment where I felt like I had really made it was I was at, my job is to work with a lot of different game publishers. And I was at one of their media briefing days, and they announced this game, which I had no idea was coming, but was one of the games that I grew up playing. And they were like, this new chapter of, I'll just say it, they'll be like, this new chapter of Assassin's Creed takes place in Egypt. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm hearing this. And everyone around me was just kind of like, they weren't fazed, but in my mind, I was like, I've totally made it. I'm working on these franchises that I love. This is so exciting that I get to be part of this. And now I think about it, working on all the games that I play and trying to figure out the best way to connect them to audience and do right for the brand, do right for Rooster Teeth is a real thrill, I would say.
So we only have a couple minutes left, so I'm going to give you rapid fire, last question time. If you had, we'll start down at the end. If you had one small tidbit of advice to somebody who wanted to get into content creation, they want to do this full time, they want to pursue this as their career, what would that one little tip be?
Do it for the right reasons. Don't do it because you see Ninja making millions on Twitch or anything. Just find what you like to do, your passion, figure out an audience that would enjoy your passion, and just go for it. Just do everything you can to put yourself out there.
What was the question again?
Quick tip, one quick tip. Somebody wants to make it. They want to be where you're sitting right now in a few years. What do you say to them?
Yeah, because I was going to answer just if it was you want to do whatever it is in life. I want to take that route of answering if whatever you want to do in life, just go for it. Regardless of what it is, it could be gaming, it could be nursing, it could be law. Just go for it. What I'm saying? Life is too short, and I think I am a living proof of anything is possible. Like I said, I'm surprised we even had internet that I could even be playing the game. So it was months and to where my dad was like, I don't know how we're gonna get the money, I don't know how we're gonna pay the internet bill. And they have even sacrificed, another bill so the internet could stay on for me. So I could play, so I could go for the tournament that I end up winning. So just the biggest thing I would say is just to go for it, whatever it is. And, if you're a parent and you have kids who play games, just try to bear with them just a little bit. Just give them a little bit of time, and, they might, change. They might blow your mind, So, and, just give them a chance. And, like I said, just go for your dreams, no matter what it is. Just lock in and go for it.
Tim?
All right. I would say keep learning. I think one of the things that in any field is that you're always going to have a new challenge. Someone will say, hey, could you set up this stream for me, or could you upload this YouTube video? And I'm always surprised people are like, oh, I don't know how to do that. But the answer can also be, I don't know how to do that, but I can learn. And I think especially being a content creator, you have to do a lot of different things. You have to do scheduling, you have to do editing, you have to do uploading. If you're expanding into other areas, or other things that you need to learn. And there's so many resources to learn how to do anything now. You could go on YouTube, how do I start a podcast? How do I stream? What is an Elgato? Things like that. And those resources are there, easy to understand, and you can always be leveling up and always stay hungry.
I love it. And that kind of ties into my final point, which is invest in yourself. When I started casting, I was in my 200 square foot apartment in Ottawa, Canada, and now we're here. And one of the things I did was I invested in a good microphone, I invested in a good webcam. I learned the techniques to make my stream look the best, to make my content look the best. Invest in yourself as a product from the outset. That will do so much more. You will stand head and shoulders above so many people who are just kind of trying. If this is really something you want to do, invest in yourself, make it worth it. That's all of our time, guys. I want to thank you all so much. I want to thank you all so much for joining us here. We appreciate it, learning a little bit more about content and esports and gaming. Guys, thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. If you are exiting the soundstage 26, please take all your belongings with you. There is no re-entry after leaving the theater. Thank you.